The official in-game descriptions of Pokemon mechanics are generally not that great at describing the specific effects a move, item, or ability will have. They hardly ever state percent chances of secondary effects or the numbers for damage modifiers, which is understandable, but sometimes they straight up leave out a mechanic entirely that you'd never remotely be able to tell just from the in-game description. Pokemon Champion seems like it will be a lot more clear in this sense, as their descriptions are much more competitive oriented, making these vague descriptions likely a thing of the past. Either way, I thought it would be interesting to recall these unwritten Pokemon mechanics and also come up with a better description that I'd expect to see in Pokemon Champions. I will not be counting the lack of a percent chance or exact damage modifier as an unwritten mechanic, but I will still adjust those phrasings if a move has other unwritten mechanics. Also, no outside of battle or overworld effects like the Mirror Herb and Destiny Knot, only in-battle effects. First, we have Water Bubble. This is the signature ability of Dewpider and Araquanid, and according to its in-game description, it lowers the power of fire moves and prevents the user from getting burned. This is a solid ability even if it just had these two effects, since it already has the effects of two abilities in one, Water Veil and Heat Proof. Water Bubble's unwritten effect is that it doubles the power of water moves. With Araquanid also being a water type, it gets a 2 times boost from Water Bubble and a 1.5 times boost from Stab, making it hit very hard even with its low attacking stats. I would instead say, the power of the Pokemon's water type attacks are doubled, it takes half damage from fire type attacks, and it cannot be burned. Next, we have Gravity. This is a move whose in-game description states that it enables flying types and levitators to be hit by ground type moves for 5 turns, and disables the use of moves that involve flying. I never actually knew the specific moves that are disabled though, which are Bounce, Fly, Flying Press, High Jump Kick, Magnet Rise, Skydrop, Splash, and Telekinesis. It's hilarious that Splash can fail, but anyway, I think leaving out this list from the in-game description is fine because that would be a lot to write, and that's not the main thing left out, it's that Gravity also increases the accuracy of all moves by a factor of 5/3, technically 6,840 4,096 from Gen 5 onward, which is approximately by 1.67 times. So I'd instead say, for 5 turns, all Pokemon become ungrounded, various moves can't be used, and moves have 1.67 times accuracy. I wasn't quite sure what to call those disabled moves, but I think maybe airborne moves could be a good name for them, so let's call them that instead of just various moves. Next, we have Flower Veil. This is an ability whose in-game description states that it protects ally Grass-type Pokemon from being inflicted by status conditions and having their stats lowered. What's missing is that Flower Veil doesn't just protect the user's Grass-type allies, but also the user if it is Grass-type. I stated in a different video how none of the Pokemon that get this ability are Grass-type, so in practice, the description is technically accurate. You could still Terra to Grass or Skill Swap to a Grass-type Pokemon though, and there's also the possibility that they actually give this ability to a Grass-type, so the description should still be more clear. Aroma Veil had a similar description in its debut generation, where it just stated that it protects allies from attacks that limit their move choices, even though it also protects the user. This was changed in Gen 7 though, unlike Flower Veil, which still says nothing about the user. So I'd instead say, all Grass-type Pokemon on the user's side are protected from status conditions and the lowering of their stats. Next, we have Snipe Shot. This is the signature move of Inteleon, and its in-game description states that it allows the user to ignore moves and abilities that draw in moves. This means things like Storm Drain and Follow Me won't redirect the move, but not saying that isn't the unwritten mechanic, it's the fact that it has a high crit ratio and straight up leaves that out. Every single other move in the game with a high crit ratio says that in its in-game description except for Snipe Shot, with my only guess as to why being that it didn't fit. So to make the other part of the description more concise to be able to fit the part about it having a high crit ratio, I'd say high crit ratio and the user ignores redirection when attacking. It can literally just be as simple as that. If you want to throw in some examples, you could say the things I mentioned before of Storm Drain and Follow Me, and some descriptions do actually do this, like how Faint specifically names Protect and Detect as examples of moves it would interact with. Next, we have Minimize. This is a move whose in-game description states that the user sharply boosts its evasiveness, which is true. What it leaves out though is its interaction with all of these moves. After using Minimize, these attacks will have perfect accuracy and deal double damage against the user. Like I said with Gravity, I think it's fine to not list all of the moves in the description, but it should state something about it having a unique interaction with a certain kind of move. Let's call these moves crushing moves and make the description say, raises evasiveness by 2 stages but causes crushing moves that target the user to have perfect accuracy and doubled power. Glaive Rush has this effect the turn after it's been used but for all attacks, and it actually mentions that in its in-game description, so Minimize definitely could as well. Also, a little bit of a side note, something that I think would be really cool for champions is to add some indication that a move is part of a move category. There's pretty much no way to tell in-game if a move is a slicing move, a biting move, a sound-based move, a punching move, etc. And knowing this information is very relevant in competitive play due to their interactions with various abilities and items. This could be as easy as just making a small icon to put in the corner of the move graphic, and I even made some basic icons myself as an example, just using some stock Google images for reference, so let me know what you think of this idea. Next, we have Solar Beam. This is a move whose in-game description states that the user gathers light on the first turn, then blasts a bundled beam on the next turn. What it leaves out is that its charge turn is bypassed in harsh sunlight. This one I don't really get why it was left out because there's absolutely enough room to fit it in, unlike Snipe Shot where I could see how it might get cluttered if you mention everything that the move does without using concise language. It might be because Solar Beam was introduced in Gen 1, which was before weather, and it also has the effect that its power is halved in every other weather, but I feel like you could still fit all of this in the description pretty easily. I'd probably say, the user charges on the first turn and attacks on the second. The user will attack immediately in harsh sunlight. Power is halved in all other weather conditions. The same could be said about Solar Blade, by the way, which has all the same properties as Solar Beam, but is physical and has 5 higher base power, so what I said for Solar Beam would be fine. Next, we have a similar set of moves, which are all moves that have perfect accuracy in Rain. To be fair, Thunder was introduced before Rain, just like Solar Beam was introduced before Sun, so there was a time where it didn't have this effect, making the in-game description actually accurate. After that though, there's really no excuse for the in-game description not to mention this since it is quite a relevant interaction. Thunder and Hurricane also have their accuracy lowered to 50% in harsh sunlight, which isn't mentioned either. First, I'd make their original effects more concise and competitive oriented, and then add a simple, this move has perfect accuracy in Rain at the end, with Thunder and Hurricane also having a 50% accurate in harsh sunlight. Hurricane would say that it has a 30% confusion chance, and the Genie's moves would say that they target all opponents, with Bleakwind Storm having a 30% speed drop chance, Sandsear Storm having a 30% burn chance, and Wildbolt Storm having a 30% paralysis chance. Next, we have Levitate. This is an ability whose in-game description states that by floating in the air, the Pokemon receives full immunity to all ground-type moves. This is true, and it might seem nitpicky to point this out, but Levitate doesn't explicitly say that it makes the user ungrounded, which has effects that are independent from just being immune to ground. Mainly, it makes the user unaffected by terrain and entry hazards, both of which are relevant to competitive contexts. So, I just add that it makes the user ungrounded. The description could be as simple as saying, the Pokemon is immune to ground and becomes ungrounded. If you want to go a step further, you could even state the things that being ungrounded does, but I think leaving it like this is fine. Next, we have Rapid Spin. This is a move whose in-game description states that it eliminates the effects of things like Bind, Wrap, and Leech Seed and boosts the user's speed stat. It leaves out the main reason that players use this move though, which is that it also clears entry hazards from the user's side of the field. Unfortunately, champions will most definitely use the worse official terminology of trap instead of the fan term entry hazard, but I do still think that they will mention that somewhere. The description would probably be something like, raises the user's speed stat by 1 stage, eliminates traps from the user's side of the field, and all binding effects from the user. The same could be said about Mortal Spin, which also frees the user from binding effects and clears entry hazards, but poisons opposing Pokemon instead of raising the user's speed. The description for this would probably be, poisons all opposing Pokemon, and the rest would be the same as what I said with Rapid Spin. The same could also be said about Defog, which isn't an attacking move, but it also removes entry hazards as an unwritten effect and has an additional unwritten effect of removing terrain. Defog removes hazards from both the user and target side, but only removes screens from the target side, which are officially called barriers, so the description would have to be something like this. Lowers the target's evasiveness by 1 stage, clears terrain, barriers from the target side, and traps from the user and target side. Next, we have Earthquake. This is a move whose in-game description states that it strikes every Pokemon around it. This is mostly accurate, but there are 2 other effects that Earthquake has that are left out. First is the fact that it has its damage halved in grassy terrain. The reason I'm including this, by the way, and not including the fact that rain, sun, and misty terrain have the damage of fire, water, and dragon moves respectively, is that grassy terrain does not have the damage of all ground type moves, only Earthquake, Bulldoze, and Magnitude, the latter 2 of which I would also suggest that they have this added to their in-game description. Earthquake's other effect is that it is able to hit Pokemon on the semi-invulnerable turn of Dig, where it will also have its power doubled, an effect shared by Magnitude and Fissure. I mainly want to focus on Earthquake though, so I'd say hits all surrounding Pokemon, deals half damage in grassy terrain, and deals double damage against digging Pokemon. Lastly, we have the abilities that interact with Sand and Hail, Sand Veil, Sand Rush, Sand Force, Snow Cloak, Ice Body, and Slush Rush. Sandstorm as a weather condition deals 1/16 max HP chip damage every turn to all non-rock, ground, and steel type Pokemon, increases special defense of rock type Pokemon by 50%, and also has unique interactions with various abilities. Sand Veil increases evasiveness, Sand Rush increases speed, and Sand Force increases rock, ground, and steel move power. Their unwritten effect is that they all also prevent the user from taking the 1/16 HP chip damage if they aren't already immune to it. Most Pokemon that get these abilities are already immune from their type, but for the few that aren't, this is a nice bonus to have so they aren't actively hindered while just trying to use their ability. Hail as a weather condition deals 1/16 max HP chip damage every turn to all non-ice types, and you guessed it, Snow Cloak, Ice Body, and Slush Rush also protect the user from that damage if they weren't already immune. Hail is just no longer in the game anymore since it's been replaced with Snow, and Snow doesn't deal any chip damage. For the new descriptions, all you gotta do is add, the Pokemon takes no damage from Sandstorm or Hail, but we're probably not getting Hail back, so we don't even really need to bother with the Hail abilities. And those are some unwritten Pokemon mechanics and how I expect champions to change their descriptions to be more clear. I most definitely missed some, so let me know in the comments about any other unwritten Pokemon mechanics. Anyway, if you want to support me and my channel, just leave a nice comment since I do read all comments. You can also become a member for 99 US cents a month to get a badge next to your name and early video access like all of these lovely people. If you want bonus content, check out my second channel, Extra Bell, where I post videos I've scrapped for the main channel, as well as more casual unscripted videos. Likes are also one of the ways that YouTube determines if a video should be passed around to more people, so if you feel that this video deserves to be, I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching.